All right. If you can't see the screen, please do let me know. I'm sharing the screen right now. So chapter 4 is talking about protecting the organization. This chapter covers some of the technology and processes used by cybersecurity professionals when protecting an organization's network or when protecting equipment and data. So first, it briefly covers the many types of firewalls, security appliances, and software that are currently used, including best practices. Okay, so this chapter is going to explain what we call botnets. It's going to explain the kill chain behavior based on security, and it's going to talk about using NetFlow to monitor a network. So the third section, we now discuss about the Cisco approach to cybersecurity. What is the Cisco approach to cybersecurity, including the CSIRT team and the security playbook. So it briefly covers the tools and cybersecurity professional use to detect and prevent network attacks. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with the firewall types. What is a firewall? Okay, a firewall represents something that protects, it's like a wall that protects the hackers, all right, from getting into your system or getting into your server. Now, a firewall is a wall or partition that is designed to prevent fire from spreading from one part of the building to another. That's the normal terms of a firewall. But in computer networking, a firewall is designed to control or filter, okay, which communications are allowed in and which are allowed out of a device or network shown in the figure. Firewall can be installed on a single computer with the purpose of protecting that one computer, which is known as the host-based firewall. It can be a standalone network device. Please, when you come in, try to mute, please, so you don't distract the class. A firewall can be installed on a single computer with the purpose of protecting that one computer, called host-based firewall. Or it can be a standalone network device that protects an entire network of computers and all of these host devices on that computer, okay, on that network, known as network-based firewall, okay? So we're going to be talking about some of these firewalls, okay? So over the years, as computer and network attacks have become more sophisticated, new types of firewalls have been developed, which serve different purposes in protecting a network. Okay, so here is a list of common firewall. We have the network layer firewall, filtering based on source and destination IP addresses. We have the transport layer firewall, filtering based on source and destination data ports, and filtering based on connection states. All right. Then we have what we call the application layer firewall, filtering based on application, program, or services. All right. Context-aware application firewall is another firewall which filters based on the user, device, role, application type, and the threat profile. Then we have what we call the proxy server. The proxy server filters filtering of a web content request, like the URL, the domain, the media. That's what the proxy server does. Then we have the reverse proxy server. The reverse proxy server is placed in front of the web server. Reverse proxy server protects, hide, offload, and distribute access to web servers. Okay. Then we have what we call network address translation, which is NAT. NAT firewall hides or masquerades the private addresses of network hosts. That's what NAT does. Then we have the host-based firewall. The host-based firewall filters of filtering of ports and system devices called calls on a single computer operating system. All right, so these are the firewalls. These are the common firewalls that we have. All right, so let's look at the activities based on what you've just learned. Please remember what I told you. Please make sure you do all these activities. Log into your class and your material and make sure you do, because all these activities will read in your final exam. All right. So let's look at what we call port scanning. Port scanning is a process. Port scanning is a process of probing a computer. Port scanning is a process of probing a computer. I'm going to share some so you can understand what the port is about. Let me show you a port, sample port. Okay, let's say port of a router. I want to show you something so you understand what exactly a port is. All right. Now, if you're looking at the diagram, you can see the connections here. These are what we call ports. All right. Where you plug the cables, your network cables is what we call ports. You can see it here. You can see the diagram here. So that's what we call ports. Okay. So there are firewall that is called port scanning. Okay. This process is to probe a computer. It probes a computer, probes the server or other network host for open ports. Now, it wants to check if the code or the port is giving the assigned information. So I'm going to talk about it briefly. In networking, each application running on a device is assigned an identifier called a port number. That means every of the ports on that system, on your laptop, on your network device has what we call a port number. So this port number is used on both ends of the transmission so that the right data is passed to the correct application. So a port scanning can be used maliciously, okay, as a reconnaissance tool to identify the operating system and services running on a computer or host. So, or it can be used harmlessly by a network administrator to verify network security policies on the network. So for the purpose of evaluating your own computer network firewall and port security, you can use a port scanning tool like NMAP. Okay, NMAP is a tool that you can use, all right? So to find all the open ports on your network. So if you want to find all open ports on your network, you use the tool called NMAP port scan, all right? So port scanning can be seen as a precursor to a network attack, and therefore should not be done on public servers, on the internet, or on a common on a company network without permission. Meaning you don't just go into a system and start doing port scanning if you are not the cybersecurity personnel of that organization. Okay, so how do you execute this? How do you execute this? Okay, to execute an NMAP port scan of a computer on your local home network, you have to download and launch a program called ZenMap. ZenMap is a software. So you provide the target IP address. IP address means Internet Protocol address of the computer. So you should like of the computer you would like to scan, all right? So when you choose the default scanning profile and press scan, the NMAP will scan and give you report of of the services that are running. So for example, it will give you the web services, it will give you the mail services, all right, and the port numbers. This scanning of a port generally results in 1-3 responses. Now, what are the responses that it's going to give you? That's what we're looking at now. It's going to give you open or accepted. Open or accepted means the host replied indicating a service is listening on the port. When it shows you the closed, deny, or not listening, the host replied indicating that connections will be denied to the port. While the last one says filtered, dropped, or blocked, that means there was no reply from the host, okay? So to execute a port scan of your network from outside of the network, you will need to initiate the scan from outside of the network. Now, how do you do that? This will involve running an NMAP port scan against your firewall or router's public IP address. So how do you discover this? You can, to discover your public IP address, use a search engine such as Google with the query, what is my IP address? The search engine will return your public IP address, okay? So to run a port scan for 6 common ports against your home router or firewall, you have to go to the NMAP online port scanner. That's the link. Now, it is very important. It is very important, okay, that you don't use this website illegally. Like I told you, every cybersecurity personnel, whatever you're learning is the same knowledge those hackers too have. Now, sending you to the hackertarget.com is for you to learn. Is for you to learn from this technology and use it positively. Very, very important. So how do you do this NMP online port scanner? Okay, and you enter your public IP address in the input box. The IP address to scan and press quick NMAP scan. If the response is open for any of the ports, you have the 21, you have the 22, you have the 25, you have the 80, you have the 443 or the 3389, then most likely port forwarding has been enabled on your router or firewall, and you are running servers on your private network as shown in figure. You can see the figure we have there. So if you look at the open port service and OS, you see the open port, you can see all the highlighting. When you use the app, you can see what comes out from the software. You can try it on your own. Like I said, make sure it's your own personal computer you are trying it. Don't go and try it on the network of the office, because it's going to indicate if there's a cybersecurity person that put security on your server, it will create an alarm. Okay, so use it on your own desktop that is not connected, so you can see the details of your. Don't go and do it on your network, office network, please. Very important. So we move into the activity. So one of the activity that you're going to do now, if you look at every topic has an activity, and please, your activity is more like you practicing what you have, you have learned. All right. So try and do this activity as well. So we'll move into the security appliances. Okay, so we want to talk about the security appliances. What are the security appliances that you need to have, okay, as a cybersecurity personnel? First, we have what we call the Cisco Integrated Service Router. These are service routers that you can use to protect your network. All right. Now, for every network you see that is running today, that gives you access to internet and give you access to be online or to be connected to a third party or second party, there's always what we call an integrated network appliance. Okay. Now, those network appliances must have one of these Cisco integrated service router to enable you or to enable your network to be protected from the hackers, either the black hackers or the white hackers, okay, or the amateur, whichever one. So we're going to be looking at those security appliances, all right? So today, there is no single security appliance or piece of technology that will solve all network security needs, because there is a variety of security appliances and tools that need to be implemented. Okay, that needs to be implemented. So it is important that they all work together. Okay, so security appliances are most effective. Security appliances are most effective when they are part of a system, meaning when you have these security appliances on, which you're seeing on the diagram, you connect it to your network. As long as you connect it to your network, the network is being protected. So they've designed it. All you need to do is buy it and plug it. Once you plug it to your network, the appliances will start doing its work to protect. Okay, so we're going to talk about those appliances now. So these security appliances can also stand alone device like a router or a firewall, a card that can be installed into a network device, or a module with its own processor and cached memory. So security appliances can also be software tools that are running on a network device. Okay, so security appliances fall into these categories. Okay, let's look at the categories. We have the first one, which is the router. What you're seeing on the system right now, they are routers. Okay, these are routers. Okay, Cisco Integrated Service Routers, that's what you have on the screen right now, called ISR, shown in figure 1, have many firewall capabilities. So there are some that is designed already with the capabilities of a firewall to protect your system. So besides just routing functions, it has what we call a filtering, and this ability can run as an intrusion prevention system, which is known as IPS. It can also work as an encryption, and it has a VPN, visual private network capabilities to secure all encrypted tunnels. All right. So that is the router. That's the kind of routers they sell. Some of those routers, they have different names, but a particular router that does this job is called an ISR router. Okay. Then we have what we call the firewalls. The firewalls is also a Cisco network generation firewall. Now, Cisco has its own firewall as well, which is what you're seeing. That's the device. Cisco next generation firewalls have all the capabilities of an ISR router, okay, as well as advanced network management and analytics. Cisco Adaptive Security Appliances, known as ASA, with firewall capabilities, are shown in figure. That's what we're seeing now. Now, after that, we now have what we call an IPS. An IPS, okay, is most of the ones people see all the time when you go to the network, when you go to companies like telecoms company like MTN and all that. Most of them make use of this. This is Cisco next generation IPS device. okay, and it's dedicated strictly on intrusion prevention. So once you install it on your server, it protects your network, okay? So we have also a VPN. A VPN is a Cisco security appliances, and they are equipped with a visual private network server and client technologies. It is designed for secure encrypted tunnel. So we have what we call malware stroke antivirus. This is a Cisco advanced malware protection called AMP. It comes in the next generation Cisco routers, firewalls, IPS devices, web and email security appliances, and can also be installed as software in the host computer. Okay, so that is for the malware and antivirus. So there are other security devices. Okay, this category includes like the web and email security appliances. We have some that are called description devices. We have client access control servers, and we have security management system. So all this actually require, and they can also help. Okay, so we have the firewall, like I said, has both software or hardware firewall. Then we are detecting attacks in real time. We are detecting attacks in real time. How do you detect attack in real time? Now we're going to see what the DDoS attacks looks like. Okay. Looking at the diagram on the screen, you see that there's a DDoS attack. How does this attack take place? Okay. Detecting attacks in real time. What do we mean by real time? Meaning detecting attack when you are live. When you're live online is what we call real time. Okay. So software is not perfect. When a hacker exploits a flaw in a piece of software, before the creator can fix it, it is known as a zero-day attack. Okay. Now, due to the sophistication and enormity of zero-day attacks found today, it is becoming common that network attacks will succeed, and that a successful defense is now measured in how quickly a network can respond to an attack. How do you respond to an attack is important. So the ability to detect attacks as they happen in real time, as well as stopping the attacks immediately or within minutes or occurring, is the ideal goal. What does this mean? It means it's possible attacks still coming, all right? But because you are prepared and you have your backups and you have your recovering process should be like within 10, 20 minutes of the attack. Because if it takes beyond that, that means you have opened your server or your network to be vulnerable for people to have access it. Okay? So how do you handle this area of real-time, attacks? There's what we call the real-time scanning from edge to endpoint. When you are detecting attacks in a real time, it requires actively scanning for attacks using firewall and IDS/IPS network devices. Okay, so the next generation client server malware detection with connection to online global threat centers must also be used, meaning there are some tools you have to have, or there are some tools you have to connect to your real time to show that that real time can detect any malicious attack that comes on your network. Then we have what we call the DDoS attacks and the real-time response. DDoS is one of the biggest attack threats requiring real-time response and the detection. So if a DDoS attacks are extremely difficult to defend against, because the attacks originate because the attack originates originate from hundreds or thousands of zombie hosts. Now, what is a zombie host? I mentioned it the other time. Okay, a zombie host is like the attack that is sent by a DDoS. All right, and the attacks appear as legitimate traffic. That means it will come as if, oh, it's a normal message, it's a normal thing that happens. Whereas it's like an attack that disguised to be like the real document, but it's not the real document. Okay, and the attacks appear as a legitimate traffic. Okay, as we are seeing on the diagram, you can look at this diagram and see the way it's been, it's been attacked. You can see the server, you can see the victim. All right, now for many companies and organizations regularly occurring DDoS attacks always cripple internet. That's what it does. It cripples internet servers and network availability. The ability to detect and respond to DDoS in real time is always crucial, meaning you need a serious configuration of your computer, okay? And you have to be very careful that the configuration can actually detect. So this is an attacker using many intermediate hosts called zombies to launch the attack. You can see how your server is. You are the owner of that server up there. Look at their own server, what they did. It's similar to what you have, okay? And when they come up, they come as a serious attack at once to hit your computer system. So how can you protect I can see someone is using pen on this. How can you protect? So network administrators must constantly monitor. Okay, let's look at from the beginning how we can protect against malware. How do you provide defense against the constant presence of zero-day attacks? I mentioned what zero-day attack is in the last discussion, as well as advanced persistent threats. That this particular steals data over a long period of time. So one solution is to use an enterprise-level advanced malware detection solution that offers real-time manual detection. So when you are buying a particular software or an antivirus, make sure your antivirus has a support of a real-time, protection or real-time detection. It can detect any malware that comes to the system at that particular time. Okay, so a network administrator must constantly monitor the network for signs of malware or behaviors. You must be able to monitor, all right? You monitor the signs of malware or behaviors that reveal the presence of an APT. So as soon as you are able to see an advanced persistent threat, Cisco has an advanced malware protection called AMP, which actually has the threat grid that analyzes millions of files and correlates them against hundreds of millions of other analyzed malware artifacts, meaning this particular tool or this particular AMP already recognizes some malware in its own database. So when you use it on a real-time basis, when you use that tool can identify if a virus is actually on your system or there's a malware attack coming on your system. So this provides what we call a global view of malware attacks. Okay, it provides a global view of malware attacks. Also, campaigns and their distributions. So AMP is a client server software. AMP is a client-server software that deployed on host endpoints as a standalone server or on other network security devices. Okay, so you can see the diagram of an AMP, how it functions. This is a Cisco AMP threat benefits security function across the organization. So let's look at how it works. First, you secure. First thing is it will secure operation center team. That's number one. It will get more accurate, actionable data. Then two, it will create what we call incident response team. That's using what we call the forensic sound information to understand suspicious behavior. Then it will now create what we call the threat intelligence team that proactively improve security infrastructure. Then the security infrastructure engineering will now consume and act on threat information faster and in an automated manner. So these are just the functions and benefits of an AMP threat grid. Okay, so most times you can always, buy this particular software and install it on your system, which is the client, or you install it on the server of your system. All right. Okay. So let's look at the best practices, security best practices. What are the best practices? Okay. We have many national and professional organizations that have been launched. They've published list of security best services. How do you handle your security issues, and what are the practices you need to learn? First, you have to perform what they call the risk assessment. The risk assessment is knowing the value at what you are protecting will help in justifying security expenditure. That's one. Two, you should be able to create a security policy. Very, very important. Create a policy that clearly outlines company rules, job duties, and expectations. Then you create what we call the physical security measures by restricting access to networking closets, server locations, as well as fire suppression. Don't let people access it at any time. Make sure you put security measures on the door. You can get a thumbprint door where you have your server that nobody goes in. And that thumbprint door has configured only the two administrators who can go into that server room. So if somebody else comes with his own thumbprint, he won't be able to have access to that server room. So you can create such. Then we have what we call the human resources security measures, which has to do with the employees. We have to use having your employees to be properly researched with background checks. Okay, you don't just leave an employee and say, okay, because he came for the work. You must be able to do a search, okay, or create a team that always go and investigate a new employer. Okay. Then we have what we call perform and test backups. Make sure you perform regular backups of your data on a different drive, so you don't lose data and find it very difficult. Then you must test data recovery from the backups. Then we have what we call maintain security patches and updates. This I always say all the time. When you buy a computer system, when you buy a hardware, or no matter the devices you are using, you must always regularly update the server or update the client and network devices operation, and also network devices operating systems and programs. Now, that network operating system is very, very important. A lot of people just buy a network hardware, and they will not update the device. Now, when you don't update the device, the functions and the ability of the online security tool might not be able to recognize your system because your system is not actually up to date. So you need to update it. Then we have another one called employee access control. So you have to configure user roles and privileges levels, as well as strong user authentication. Don't just leave your network open. Make sure you create an authentication for it. Then we have what we call the regularly test incident response. Regularly test incident response has to do with you employ an incident response team and test emergency response scenarios all the time. Then we have the one we call implement a network monitor, analytics, and management tool. So you have to choose a security monitoring solution that integrates with the technologies, okay, which is very important. Then you implement network security devices. After you've done that, you can now implement using the next generation routers, you use the firewalls and other security appliances, okay? So we have the implement a comprehensive endpoint security solution. How do you do this? You use enterprise level anti-malware and antivirus softwares. Then we have the end users. End users are actually the educated users and employees in secure procedures, all right? Then we have the last one, which is encrypt data, which I mentioned earlier in the last class, that you encrypt all sensitive company data, including your email, all right? So some of these most helpful guidelines are found in organizational repository, such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is the NIST, okay? Which is also the Computer Security Resources Center, as shown in the figure. You can see the diagram, all right? So one of the most widely known and respected organizations for cybersecurity training is the SAN Institute, okay? So you can click on that place to see what SAN has. So this one takes us to what we call the behavior approach to cybersecurity, okay? The behavior approach to cybersecurity, all right? So we actually would like to stop here. And the reason why I do this is because of the recordings that we do. So whoever is actually trying to watch the class don't have too much long data consumption to be able to watch the YouTube, okay? So the next class, which happens to be, by the grace of God, the final class, we'll be talking about botnet. And after we talk about botnet, we move to the classification of cybersecurity professionals, how you can actually, gain, we'll talk about the behavior, talk about the net flow, then we move to the final, which is the final chapter, which is your future in cybersecurity. All right. So this will be tagged as day 7. Okay. So I'll be having another video later in the evening, so I can have day 8 to meet up the yesterday class that we missed. Okay. So once that video is prepared later this evening, I'll upload it as well. So you have day 7 and day 8 today. Okay. Then we have the remaining class by tomorrow, by the grace of God. So that is it. Then when we talk tomorrow, I can now do a little bit of how you can go around your classroom and how you can do your exam, what you need to click. I'll do a short videos of that as well, or we can actually do it after the last class tomorrow. All right. So thank you for your time. And we